Hey guys, welcome back to another Division 2 build video. So, Year 8 Season 1 is finally here, and we've got a brand new game mode to grind, plus the all-new prototype gear system that takes endgame content in Division 2 to a whole nother level. So with the new Escalation game mode, you get tokens for completing each mission, which you can then use to wager for higher tiers. So as you can imagine, the NPCs will get a lot tougher due to the scaling as you progress through each tier. So with that being said, in today's video, I'm going to showcase 3 solo setups that work extremely well for the new Escalation game mode, okay? These builds are super solid and they should hold up very well in the higher tiers. But first off, what I have for you guys is a high weapon damage setup with a fairly decent amount of survivability, thanks to the bonus armor coming from Bloodsucker, and it works great at any range. So whether you like playing up close or from mid-range, you should find it suitable for you. This build is simply amazing, and I'm sure you guys will love it. Next up, we've got a well-balanced armor regeneration build that really stands out. Not only is the survivability on this setup great, due to the armor regeneration and bonus armor, but it also deals a surprisingly decent amount of damage. And finally, a setup that combines high weapon damage with next level survivability. Like, seriously guys, the survivability on this setup is just out of this world. This is truly the ultimate build for solo players, and it even holds up very well for legendary content. You should be able to reach tier 3 or even tier 4 with these setups without any prototype gear. So guys, without further ado, let's check these builds out. Okay guys, I know this is going to sound cliche, but the damage on this first setup is insane. But that's not the best part about it. So as you're getting kills, you're essentially increasing your survivability. So the idea behind this is stacking as much weapon damage as possible without sacrificing survivability, right? Now, one great way to do this is by incorporating the talent Bloodsucker. So with Bloodsucker, as you're getting kills, you're building stacks of bonus armor. And so this will actually enhance your survivability as you're fighting. You can play this setup at any range, so don't feel like you need to play at a distance. But once you get to the higher tiers, it would be best to play at a safe distance. At least until you build up enough bonus armor stacks, right? So like you can kill a few NPCs to build up bonus armor stacks, and that should allow you to rush in for a brief moment and play a little more aggressive, right? And as you're getting more kills, you're maintaining those Bloodsucker stacks. So for anyone here who's new, Bloodsucker is a backpack talent that will grant you 10% bonus armor per stack. I get 12%, however, since I have Perfect Bloodsucker, which only comes with the named Liquid Engineer backpack. So you get 12% from the Perfect and 10% from the normal. And this can stack up to 10 times. So basically at full stacks, the normal Bloodsucker will give you a total of 100% bonus armor, while Perfect gives you 120%. I'll show you where you can get this name bag towards the end of the video for anyone new. But in the meantime, you can just use a normal Bellstone bag and recalibrate Bloodsucker. You also get a 1% armor regeneration bonus with 1 piece of Bellstone equipped, which helps a little with survivability. Especially with all the bonus armor you get from Bloodsucker, not to mention the armor on kill bonus coming from the gunner weapon specialization also enhances survivability. Now for the gloves, I'm running the exotic Overdogs gloves. These gloves are a must-have and they work extremely well for PVE. So basically, your weapon damage gets amplified by 30% to the lowest ranking enemies in combat. If you're new, you can try farming for these gloves in Countdown or the Summit, since you have the option to target loot. For the knee pads, a Fenris piece with armor, both critical hit chance and damage, and you get a 10% assault rifle damage bonus for 1 piece. Then for the holster, the named Salvo piece, which is basically a named Unit Alloys piece that comes with a 5% rate of fire attribute. This piece is very easy to get, by the way. It can basically drop anywhere. But for the vest, another named Unit Alloys piece called the Equalizer. Amazing movie, by the way. But this piece comes with Perfect Obliterate. So for anyone here who's new, basically all named high-end vest and backpacks come with perfect talents. So with Perfect Obliterate, you're basically getting 1% weapon damage for landing a critical hit, which lasts for 10 seconds, but each hit will reset the timer, and max stacks is 24. So that's an easy 24% added weapon damage. Now, since this is technically my second piece of unit alloys, even though it's a named piece, I get both the 5% rate of fire and 20% assault rifle damage bonus. So that's a total of 10% added rate of fire with salvo. And by the way, named pieces other than the vest and backpack come with a predetermined minor attribute. So salvo comes with that 5% rate of fire, right? And for the final piece, Walker Harris with armor, critical hit damage and chance, and a critical hit damage mod. Plus, Walker Harris grants 5% weapon damage for just one piece. Now for the weapons, I'm running the Lexington for my primary and the St. Elmo's engine as my secondary. And for the weapon talent, I went with Killer. So Killer will grant you 70% critical hit damage for 10 seconds whenever you kill an enemy with a critical hit. This is a prototype Lexington, and prototype weapons come with augments, which you can re-roll. So for the augment, I'm using Amalgam, so every bullet hit has a 0.7% chance to apply a random status effect, and you can actually level up your augments as well if you have prototype core, but you'll need to level this progress meter up first, so this percentage will eventually increase as I continue to level this augment. Some great alternatives to the Lexington are the Carbine 7, Honey Badger, or the Police M4. And for the weapon stats, 56% critical hit chance and 139% critical hit damage. Now I went with the gunner weapon specialization for the 10% armor on kill bonus, which helps a lot. Even though it's only 10%, you can get a lot of kills with this setup, so that 10% can add up fast and save you in some situations, right? And for the global modifiers, I'm still currently unlocking them, but at the moment, I'm running Cloud Armor for the active. So upon activation, you will repair armor for yourself and allies inside a 10-meter radius at a rate of 8.4% total armor per second. And for the passive modifiers, I'm running Amplify, Consume, and Split. So Amplify will increase offensive stacks by 5, Consume will increase offensive stacks by 10, while decreasing defense and utility stacks by 5 each. And Split will decrease offensive stacks by 15, while increasing defense and utility stacks by 10 each. And so this is the result, right? So 12% weapon handling, 8.5% max armor, and 17% skill damage. But I'll probably make a video explaining how these work because it can be confusing at first. Okay guys, this next setup has way more survivability than the previous. With this setup, I'm running the exotic Memento backpack, which many of you are already familiar with. The exotic Memento backpack is an extremely viable piece since it provides weapon damage, armor regeneration, and bonus armor. This setup is ideal for solo players, or for anyone who needs something tanky, while still having enough weapon damage to push through higher difficulty content. So this setup would be a better option if you're having trouble staying alive on the higher tiers. One small downside though is that you will need to collect trophies in order to build stacks of weapon damage and armor regeneration. However, this setup already has a decent amount of armor regeneration and weapon damage without Memento, so Memento just enhances those stats, big time. You get a whopping increase of 30% weapon damage and 3% armor regeneration at full stacks. But not everyone likes having to go around collecting trophies from downed NPCs, and I get it, it can be risky. But once you reach full stacks, it's super easy to maintain them, so don't let that discourage you from using Memento, because honestly, the benefits far outweigh the cons. Once you reach full stacks, you can really see a big difference in both your damage and armor regeneration. And with all that armor regen stacked, you're basically Wolverine. So for the primary weapon, I'm using a prototype Lexington with the talent Killer. So you get 70% critical hit damage for eliminating an enemy with a critical hit, and for the augment, Amalgam. So again, every bullet hit has a chance to apply a random status effect like blind, bleed, shock, and so on. Now for the gear pieces, a Bellstone Armory Mask with armor, critical hit chance and damage with a critical hit damage mod, and for one piece, you get a 1% bonus armor regeneration. And for the vest, a Golan gear piece with armor for the core attribute, then armor regeneration and critical hit chance for the minor attributes, with a critical hit damage mod, and Obliterate for the talent, so critical hits will increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 20 times, so that's 20% increased weapon damage, And for the holster, the named Salvo Unit Alloys holster, which again comes with a 5% rate of fire attribute, with armor and critical hit chance. Then for the knee pads, another Unit Alloys piece with armor and crits. And you get 5% rate of fire as well as 20% assault rifle damage for 2 pieces, right? And for the gloves, a second piece of Golem gear with armor for the core attribute, then armor regeneration and critical hit chance for the minor, and for 2 pieces, you get a 10% status effects damage as well as a 1.5% armor regeneration bonus. Now for the backpack, Memento comes with all 3 types of the major core attributes, so weapon damage, armor, and skill tier, as well as the talent Kill Confirmed. So if any of you are familiar with Call of Duty's game mode Kill Confirmed, it's very similar to that. You're basically collecting trophies from downed NPCs, and they will provide you with both a short and long-term buff. The short-term buff lasts for 10 seconds, and it will scale with the number of core attributes you have equipped. So these are the values you get per corresponding core attribute, right? Now on the other hand, the long-term buff will last for 5 minutes, and grants you 1% weapon damage and skill efficiency, as well as 0.1% armor regeneration. Max stacks is 30, so at full stacks, you get 30% weapon damage and skill efficiency with 3% armor regeneration. And each trophy that you collect after reaching max stacks will reset the 5-minute timer, so you can see how easy it is to maintain full stacks, right? Now for the weapon specialization, I went with Gunner, mainly for the armor on kill bonus, and for the weapon stats, about 100k weapon damage, but this will go up significantly once you start building Memento stacks, probably up to 110,000 or something like that, but 56% critical hit chance and 103% critical hit damage. And just in case anyone here is curious, here are the defensive stats. So 62,000 base armor regeneration, but this goes up to over 100,000, by the way, like after reaching full Memento stacks, but 209,000 armor on kill, which is pretty good. And for the global modifiers, same as the previous build, but instead of consume, I'm running compress. And this just gives me a little more max armor and skill damage. So it will decrease offensive stacks by 10. However, each offensive stack is 50% more effective. Okay guys, this last setup is definitely taking the cake in terms of survivability. This is truly the ultimate build for a solo player, and you can pretty much run any difficulty with this. I've showcased this build in a few earlier videos because it's just that good, and it's actually one of my go-to builds for higher difficulty content like Legendary or Master. But I honestly can't think of any other build with amazing DPS that has this amount of survivability. At times, it almost feels a little too overpowered, but there is one particular weapon talent that makes this build the powerhouse that it is, and that's the Adaptive Instincts talent on the Chameleon. With the Chameleon's Adaptive Instincts talent, you're getting up to 90% weapon damage for landing 65 body shots, 20% critical hit chance, and 50% critical hit damage for landing 30 headshots, and a 150% reload speed increase for landing 20 leg shots. So the Chameleon is a hell of a weapon, and paired with the exotic Memento bag and a 4-piece Foundry set, you get a dynamic trio. Foundry provides you with incredible survivability, the Chameleon provides you with increased weapon damage and more DPS, while Memento enhances both. So with a 4-piece Foundry Bulwark set, you get 10% total armor for 2 pieces, 1% armor regen, and 50% shield health for 3 pieces, and for 4 pieces, you get the Makeshift Repairs talent. So whenever you or your shield take damage, 25% of that amount is repaired to both you and your shield over a span of 10 seconds. For the vest, I'm running Fenris with Intimidate, and Intimidate will provide you with an increased amount of weapon damage for basically having bonus armor. So you will gain 1 stack each second you have bonus armor active, and each stack grants you 4% weapon damage. Stacks max out at 9, so that comes out to about 36% weapon damage at full stacks, right? But you only get that buff to enemies that are within 10 meters of you. So yeah, this setup really works the best at close range. But when you have Intimidate active with the 90% weapon damage increase coming from the Chameleon's Adaptive Instincts talent, as well as full Memento stacks, that's when you can see some real damage. But for the Foundry pieces, I'm running armor for the core attribute with critical hit damage for all of the minor attributes, and a critical hit chance mod for both the mask and backpack with a critical hit damage mod for the vest. And for the stats, 43% critical hit chance and 117% critical hit damage on the chameleon. Also, remember that you're getting 20% critical hit chance from the chameleon's adaptive instincts talent, so if you can, try not to exceed 40% critical hit chance since the cap is 60%, because you want to leave room for that 20% increase, right? So if anyone here needs any of the pieces for these builds, like the exotic Memento bag, Overdogs, or the St. Elmo's engine, I would highly recommend running Countdown or the Summit. These two activities drop a high volume of loot, especially Countdown, and what's even better is that you get to select targeted loot. If you need the St. Elmo's engine, for example, you can simply just select assault rifles, and this will increase your chances of getting it to drop as targeted loot. Same thing with the Overdogs gloves, you can just select gloves and so on. But as far as the Liquid Engineer backpack, this item can only drop as contaminated loot in the Dark Zone. However, you can also get it from named caches, reconstructed caches, or you have the chance of getting the blueprint from Descent so you can craft one. But honestly, I recommend farming Countdown and using the Countdown credits to buy named caches at the vendor, because you never know, you may get lucky and get one to drop from a named cache. I've actually gotten a few from named caches, so anyway, this is Prajna. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate you, especially the channel members. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you guys have any questions, leave them down for me in the comments section. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and see you guys in the next video. Peace out.